Why hello there, and welcome back to my look into the 1D&D, aka Dungeon and Dragon, Expert Classes, Playtests materials. If you missed part 1, where I looked at the changes to the Bard class, you can watch that now, or you can watch it later, or honestly you can watch it not at all. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this video. This playtest focuses on the expert group classes, the Bard, the Ranger, and the Rogue, and in this video, I will be looking at the Ranger, a class that I have never played because, honestly, they kinda seem like a combination of the okayest aspects of a druid and a fighter. Anyway, my personal indifference aside, let's get into the Dungeon and Dragon Ranger. The Ranger's hit dice, saves, skills, weapons, and armor proficiency remain unchanged. And the first and most notable thing, their spells now start at level 1. They don't, get any more spells or anything. They didn't, bump all the spells up one level. They just took the spells that you get at level 2, and you get them at level 1 instead. But from that point, it progresses the same as in 5th edition. And I explained this in the Bard video, but I'm going to explain it again here in case you did not watch the Bard video. So, spells known are no longer a thing. Instead, the Ranger gets access to the entire primal spell list, excluding evocation spells. And each day you prepare a number of spells equal to your spell slots. So if you have 2 level 1 spells per day and 1 level 2 spell per day, you can prepare 2 level 1 spells and 1 level 2 spell, and then they are cast spontaneously just like they would be from a spell list. So I believe similar to a wizard. And I don't particularly like this. It's not like getting the spells a level early is a big deal. Of course, it's also not like getting the spells a level later is a big deal. The thing is, I don't like why they did it, because they did it for a very specific reason that is kind of a big deal. A very specific reason, like favored enemy, which now, instead of choosing a creature type and getting bonuses to skill checks related to creatures of that type, you get Hunter's Mark as a bonus prepared spell. Not a bonus spell, like you don't get any extra castings of it, just an extra spell that you always have prepared in addition to your normal limit of prepared spells. The only other noteworthy thing being that it no longer requires concentration when you use it. And boy howdy do I have opinions on this, but I'm going to hold those for now because I don't want to have to repeat myself later. Rangers also get expertise in 2 skills at first level, which is like the Bard and Rogue feature. You get double proficiency bonus on those 2 specified skills, and is also now a defined term in the game, which I personally find kind of unnecessary, but yeah. And then you do also get that again at 9th level. Also, Natural Explorer is gone. I think the expertise might be a little bit of an attempt to make up for that, but there's no direct anything with favored terrain anymore. Technically, there's no favored enemy anymore because it's just whatever enemy you are attacking, but once again, I'm going to hold my thoughts on that for later. At 2nd level, you still get a fighting style, but they are now once again in the form of bonus feats, because feats are once again a standard part of the game, the options being reduced to archery, defense, and to weapon fighting. No idea why dueling was removed, but it was. At level 3, Primeval Awareness is gone, with no replacement, and you get your subclass, which is the new name for Ranger archetypes. The playtest materials only include the Hunter subclass, so we're gonna look at that. The bonuses have been changed from levels 3, 7, 11, and 15 to 3, 6, 10, and 14, possibly in an attempt to have some more cross-class consistency. At 3rd level, you get Hunter's Prey, which functions kinda like the 5th edition version, except it has been reduced to only the Colossus Slayer option, which gives you an extra d8 damage against creatures that are below maximum hit points. Defensive Tactics has been replaced with Hunter's Lore at level 6, which allows you to automatically know any immunities, resistance, or vulnerabilities of a creature subject to your Hunter's Mark, which, remember, is a non-bonus spell that replaced Favored Enemy. At level 10, multi-attack is still technically there, but boy, it is so much worse. Instead of letting you attack all enemies in a 20-foot area or all adjacent enemies, it instead adds Conjure Barrage as a bonus prepared spell. Yes, another ability that literally just gives you a spell that is always prepared. Although you can also cast it as a level 1 or 2 spell with reduced damage. And I will now share my thoughts on this. I don't remember if I actually said this in the first playtest packet video I did, but there is something of a feeling going on that they think spells are just kind of the solution to all of their problems. Like, if they just pile enough spells onto a character, then it will somehow just magically become good game design. And so far, this is the worst example of that. Favored Enemy has been replaced with a spell. Defensive Tactics has been removed, and in its place, a modification to that previous spell. Multi-attack has been replaced with a spell. And yeah, there are tiny little class-specific tweaks to those spells, but it is still replacing major class features with generic spells. And keep in mind, these are bonus prepared spells. Not bonus uses of these spells, not bonus spells known. Both of those spells are already on the Ranger's spell list. They are just additional spells that you always have prepared. So you really get almost nothing in exchange for those abilities. Anyway, back to actually looking at stuff and not ranting. At level 14, Superior Hunter's Defense is basically the uncanny dodge option from the 5th edition version, but, you know, that is now the only option. And in addition to having the damage from an attack, you can also redirect that half damage to another creature within range. So that's a thing that they made better, provided that that was already the option that you thought was the best one. So overall, they basically just removed all of the options but one from the subclass features, except Defensive Tactics, which they just removed and replaced with a modified use of a spell. So, not great in general. Anyway, back to the main Ranger abilities. At levels 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19, the ability score improvements have been replaced with feats, including the ability score improvement feat. Although the Ranger does also get special access to the fighting style feats, which are normally only available to classes in the Warrior group. At 5th level, you get an extra attack with the attack action. I guess they couldn't find a spell that they could replace that with, but, you know, I believe in them. I'm sure they'll figure out some way to ruin that by the time the book comes out. At 7th level, you get the Roaming ability, which increases your speed by 10 feet and also gives you an equivalent swim and climb speed. So, a new useful ability. But of course, Law of Equivalent Exchange, you lose Land Stride at level 8 and Hide in Plain Sight at level 10. But then at level 11, there is another new ability, Tireless, which allows you to get 1d8 plus proficiency modifier temporary hit points after a rest, or reduce your fatigue level by 1 after a short rest. And at level 13, another new ability, Nature's Veil, which lets you expend a spell slot to become invisible until the end of your next turn. Which, you know, it's a good thing that you don't need those spell slots for using the things that they replaced key Ranger class features with or anything. At 14th level, Vanish is gone. I guess conceptually Nature's Veil is supposed to cover that general area, just, you know, not as well. Feral Senses has been moved from level 18 to 15 and now grants Blind Sight 30 instead of basically Blind Sight 30. Foe Slayer has been moved from level 20 to level 18 and you're gonna love this. Instead of allowing you to add your Wisdom modifier to attacks or damage against your favorite enemy because you do not have a favorite enemy anymore, it increases the damage bonus from Hunter's Mark from a D6 to a D10. That is your big ultimate class feature, increasing bonus damage from a spell. Okay, technically your ultimate ability is the Epic Boon, which is a new category of overly powerful feats, and I will be going into those in a future video when I talk about the feats and stuff, but for now, the recommended Epic Boon for the Ranger is the Epic Boon of Fortitude, which gives you 40 additional hit points and lets you increase all healing received by your Constitution modifier. So, as I said, a quite powerful feat. And that was the Ranger, an unimpressive class which was not done any favors by this redesign. Overall, it feels like they lost much more than they gained, both in terms of abilities that were just removed and abilities that were replaced with something considerably worse. Although, admittedly, some things they only made slightly worse by just taking away all of the options except one. And while they did add things like, roving, that's an okay ability, the things that they removed were like the key class features of the Ranger. Like earlier I joked about seeing the Ranger as basically just a fighter/druid, and that's even more true here. Like favorite enemy, favored terrain, camouflage, these are Ranger features that the Ranger has, or had, because they are the specific things that were removed. It's almost like they are intentionally removing the key features from each class, but I can't think of any reason why they would want to do that. Okay, maybe I can think of one reason, but it's a bad reason. Obviously the most egregious thing being the loss of favored enemy, because Hunter's Mark is an okay spell, but it's not a spell that you want to build an entire class around. Because remember, they did not just replace favored enemy with Hunter's Mark, they replaced favored enemy, defensive tactics, and Foe Slayer with some variation of Hunter's Mark. Unfortunately, it's not like there's an easy fix here or anything, especially not, an example in this same playtest packet of a way that this could be fixed, It's not like they could just give you Hunter's Mark as a spell-like ability usable a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus, something that would still have your use of it restricted, but also make it usable enough that it would kind of be reasonable to have 2 more abilities that modify it. But no, we can't do that. That would just be silly. It's much better to do absolutely nothing. Anyway, that was my deep dive into the Dungeon and Dragon Ranger. And I know it's a little early to call it the worst class redesign of 1 D&D, but honestly, if they did worse than this, I would be really impressed. They'd have to do something like replace a barbarian's rage with spellcasting, or make paladins exclusively proficient in crossbows. I mean, admittedly, I'm not saying that those things are outside the realm of possibilities, but it would be impressive. However, on the bright side, this does mean that by comparison, the rogue will almost certainly not be as bad as this when I look at it in the next exciting installment of making videos about the dragon game because algorithms. Anyway, thank you for watching, with extra special thanks to my Fightin' Flail Snails, Samuel Gorski, Randy Mulholland, and Toshirokuro. If you'd like to be cool like them, you can check out my Patreon, where you can get early access to videos and fun stuff that I make for the Patreon. Of course, if you don't want to do that, that's cool too. You can still hit all the lovely buttons, like, subscribe, these other videos that either myself or the cold, heartless YouTube algorithm have lovingly selected for you, and I am sure are lovely videos that you will also enjoy. And I will see you next time with the Rogue. We'll be getting all stabby and whatnot.